Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So this is part 2 of vulnerability scanning with Nessus. So in part 1 I showed you how to actually set up and install the Nessus instance, right? So be sure to check out that if you haven't already. So in this part I'm going to show you how to actually perform the vulnerability scans using Nessus. So without further ado, let's get into it. So now we're going to head back over to the scans page of our dashboard. And as the name implies, here you'd see a listing of all the various scans that we currently have configured. Because this is a brand new instance, we don't have any configured right now, but we're going to go ahead and do that now. Right, so you could create a new scan by choosing this option on the one on the top right hand corner there. Right, so I'm just going to select create new scan. And here's a look at all the different scans that we can perform using Nessus. Right, so there's a variety of different scans. Again, I'm just going to highlight some of the more important ones, starting off with host discovery. This is a good scan to let you know what's currently on your network, right? Especially help identify any rogue devices that might be on your network. And it's really good and handy to start off with the initial host discovery scan. Up next, we have a basic network scan, and guys, don't let the name fool you. This is actually a pretty good in-depth scan that helps you identify vulnerabilities on your network host, right? So unlike the first scan that just discovers the host, this takes it a step further and helps you to identify, vulnerabilities on the host. So definitely a good scan, that could be used on a weekly or monthly basis if you want to do vulnerability scanning on your network. Right, so pretty much one of my favorite scans. Also, we have a couple advanced scans here. We also have this malware scan that helps you identify malware on Windows and Linux Mac devices. We also have a mobile device scan, right? But as you can see, it says upgrade, right? So this is not available on the essentials package that we have. You have to upgrade to do that. And here again we could see another important scan is the Active Directory status scan, right? So this helps to find misconfigurations in your Active Directory environment. Another pretty good scan in my opinion, as most organizations use Active Directory. At the bottom here, we notice there's some compliance scans, but all of these require us to upgrade as they are not available in the Nessus Essentials bundle, right, or version, right? So this is perfect for anyone who needs their environment to meet any sort of compliance requirements such as PCI DSS, any of these other requirements, compliance requirements. These scans are perfect for something like that, right? So enough talk about the different scans. Let's actually get into setting up a scan. So first off, I'm going to start off with a host discovery scan. So you need to give the scan a name. I'm just keeping it really simple and naming it demo host discovery. All right, and next we need to enter a description if we want to. I'm just not going to do that since this is a demo. We could create actually different folders for our scans, right, if we want to categorize them, but I'm just leaving the default my scans folder. And for target, we need to enter our host addresses. This would be our IP addresses of the machines. We can enter them manually, or we can upload a file there, a CSV file if we have that with the IP addresses. So I'm gonna enter my entire network range, right, using CIDR notation. Right, so this basically would scan my entire network, and this is what you want to do for something like a host discovery. You want to try to figure out what is on your network. Looking at the schedule settings, here we could actually set up a schedule for this particular scan, right, if we wanted to, right? And we could set it up for daily, weekly, monthly, however we want to run our scanning schedule. This is great, as it helps you automate these scans, right? As you can see, you can only set up one schedule at a time since we're using the essentials version. However, if you have a paid version, you could set up more than one schedule, right? So this is a great feature, in a real life scenario. So another handy feature is where we could set up notifications, email notifications that is, so we could enter the email addresses of people that we like to get a copy of the scan report. right? And we could also filter that. So, in most organizations, it's impossible to remediate everything. So a lot of the times you want to only get reports of severe things, right? Critical things. So we could do that here. We could, use the filter option here. And if we look at severity, right, we could choose severity, and we could put the severity as critical or high or whatever we choose to do, right? And we can add more than one feature, right? So definitely a handy way of filtering things to send for our reports, right? So yeah, and we have a lot of other features here where we could choose a scan type, whether it's by port, by OS identification, but I'm just going to leave it as host enumeration for this example, right? And a lot of different options here. Again, I'm just going to leave these things as default for this demo in particular, right? But feel free to adjust them according to your needs. So now that I've finished configuring my scan, I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And we could see over here in the My Scans dashboard, right? We could see that that scan has been saved. And it shows on demand since it's not scheduled. And in order to run the scan now, it's pretty simple. You just come over to this play icon, hit it, and we can see that green spinning circle that shows that our scan is currently running, right? So this could be a while, so I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to resume it once the scan has finished. And it looks like the scan is finished running, guys. So to view the results, we simply go ahead and we hit on the scan itself, we click on it, and here we can see the scan results, right? So as we can see, all these various IP addresses are hosts that the scan found on our network. So these are actual devices on our network, right? So it shows us the host IP addresses. Another good thing, it shows us the port, right? It shows us the ports that are currently open, right? So as we can see, a bunch of these ports are open on this device. And if we scroll down, we can see a lot of other ports are open here, right? So this is actually pretty good. It shows us, and basically we could kind of tell what kind of devices they are based on the ports that are open, whether it's SMB, HTTP, various, Windows services in this case, right? So yeah, this shows us, as the name implies, it discovers the hosts on our network, the various hosts. And if we look over to the right hand side, it shows us, the vulnerabilities. It just shows blue, for info, since it's really just an info gathering scan, right? The whole thing shows as blue. So guys, I'm going to be honest, I actually planted 2 vulnerable machines on my network for the purpose of this demo. This 218, being one of those machines, right? This is actually Metasploitable 2, which is a vulnerable machine, Linux machine that people normally use for penetration testing to practice on. And this other machine at the bottom here, right? 131, this is actually a Windows 7 machine that I have on my network, which, as we all know, Windows 7 is also vulnerable as well, right? A really vulnerable OS. It's outdated. So I'm going to show you how the results would look by doing vulnerability tests on those 2 specific machines, since I know we're going to find some good stuff there. So to do that, I'm going to hit on New Scan, and I'm going to go to Basic Network Scan. Alright, so I'm going to, enter a simple name, Demo Basic Network. Right, so this kind of scan is perfect, as I said, if you're doing those internal vulnerability scans for your network, right? So you're in charge of doing vulnerability scans at your workplace. This is perfect for that. You'll notice we have a credential options here. So here we can actually enter the credentials if we knew it for our network devices. So those 2 machines that I said I planted before on the network, one is a Windows, one is a Linux. So I can enter those credentials here, which would allow Nessus to perform a much deeper scan, as it would be using system level privileges. All right. So first off, for the SSH credentials, this being my Metasploitable 2 machine that I have on my network, I'm going to enter the credentials for this, right? So in this case, we're not using a public key, right? We're just using a username and password. So I'm going to change that authentication method to password. And the default username and password for Metasploitable 2 is MSF admin, right, for both username and password. So next up, I need to enter the credentials for my Windows 7 machine that I have on my network. So I'm gonna hit Windows and I'm gonna enter the credentials that I have for that machine over here. Right, so as I said, by providing these credentials, this is great if you're doing any sort of internal vulnerability scans, as it gives you much better, a deeper scan with much better results. So because it's Windows 7, I'm going to uncheck the do not use NT LMV1, right, version 1, since it's an older version of Windows. So once I'm happy with those settings, now I am going to actually enter the IP address for the host, right? So I'm going to enter it on the targets, and it's those two specific IP address as I mentioned. I'm going to enter that here. So I'm basically just going to leave everything else as default and hit save. And there we can see our basic network scan has been saved. Right, so similarly, I'm just going to hit play to begin the scan. So this scan actually takes much longer, guys, because since we're doing a more in-depth scan, right, we're actually scanning for vulnerabilities here. So this could take some time, right? So I'm just going to pause the video and I'll resume it once the scan has been completed. So the scan has finally been completed. So we're going to hit on that to see the results. And at a glance here, guys, you can see it looks much different from our previous host discovery scan. We have, instead of just blue, we have some red, we have some orange, we have some yellow indicated critical, high, medium, low vulnerabilities, right? A bunch of different vulnerabilities associated for each of the different hosts, right? So to view the details of the vulnerabilities, we could do that using two methods. By hitting on the vulnerabilities tab here, that basically shows you a list of all the vulnerabilities found on both of the hosts. Or if we hit on the host task, we could simply click on that specific host and we'd see a list of the vulnerabilities for that particular host. So this host in particular is our Linux box, Metasploitable 2. And in most cases, you don't necessarily want to see all the vulnerabilities because you just don't have the time to be able to remediate all of them. You want to focus on the high or critical ones, right? So to do that, we could choose the filter option. And here we could filter by severity, right? And by doing this, we cut out all that noise, right? And just focus on some of the more critical ones. I'm going to choose critical, apply. And here we could see a lot of that noise has been removed, so we could kind of focus on some of the more high priority vulnerabilities. So if I select this one here, right, with NFS permissions, right, so this basically gives us a description. It lets us know that anyone can mount NFS shares, right, which is something we don't want happening. It also gives us a solution where we could configure NFS on the remote host, right, to allow only authorized people to be able to mount it. So that's a good thing about Nessus. It gives us the solution aside from just finding the vulnerabilities. And if we look at the output, this would show us what Nessus was able to do. It was basically was able to mount all of these NFS shares, right? So this is something definitely we want to have taken care of and remediated. And as I said, the good thing about Nessus, it shows us the details of the vulnerabilities as well as the solution, right? So it doesn't leave us hanging, in other words. If we look at the right side here, it also tells us, the risk factors that we have, right? It lets us know also something very important, whether this is exploitable or not, right? And as we can see, it is exploitable, right? So a lot of the times they have vulnerabilities, but you can't exploit them. But this shows us that this vulnerability is actually exploitable and it can be exploited by Metasploit, right? So definitely something we want to pay attention to if we see something like this in our vulnerability scans. Not only that it's a critical vulnerability, but also that it is exploitable. And down there, it has links to some of the other CV information that we can refer to. So yeah, just looking through some of the titles there, as we can see, VNC server password, it has a default password there for that server, so bunch of vulnerabilities on our Linux box. Moving over to our Windows box now, we could see we have these critical. Again, the filter is still applied there, so it shows us the most critical vulnerabilities here. We could see the first one is unsupported Windows OS, right? It gives us the description. It lets us know that the version is no longer supported, right? Also, it tells us the solution: upgrade your operating system, right? And it tells us, the version of Windows which was detected, which is Microsoft Windows 7 Ultimate, as we know, is no longer supported, by Microsoft. So no more, it's no longer getting security updates, patches, etc. Right? If we go back, we could see there's some other vulnerabilities. This one in particular allows remote code execution, right, which is also critical, meaning it allows a hacker to be able to remotely execute code on your machine, right? Again, as we look at the vulnerability section here, it gives us some more info about it being exploitable or not, right? But yeah, again, Nessus really does a really good job of prioritizing, filtering out these vulnerabilities, as well as showing us the solutions, right? Not just leaving us hanging. So we could pass on this to our remediation team, our patch team, in order for them to resolve. So in closing, I just want to show you how the report feature looks like on Nessus, right? So I mean, it's all well and good finding vulnerabilities, but how we present them in a report is also critical, right? So we simply click on the report tab there, and it shows you the various formats that the reports can be saved on, right? I usually just kind of choose PDF, since it's simple and most compatible, right? And here we have these different types of reports. So two of my favorite are the complete list of vulnerabilities by host, and also the detailed vulnerabilities by host. So I'm going to show you how those two look like, and we also have two others here, right? So the first one is the complete list of vulnerabilities by host. So if I simply click on that and I click on create report, it usually takes a couple seconds, and you'd see that little circle spinning on the lower left hand corner there. Lets you know that the report is being generated. So this first report is a real high level report. It's perfect for like management and stuff like that. It basically gives you a high level view of the vulnerabilities that you have on your network, right? So if you scroll along here, you'd see it breaks it down: critical, high, medium, low, right? And we're using the filter for critical, so it's only showing critical right now. But yeah, it just gives you a high overview of all the various different vulnerabilities that were found on the network itself. Next up, we're going to take a look at the detailed vulnerabilities by host report, right? So this actually is my favorite report because it's more suited for like security professionals, right? Where it actually gives you more detail in terms of how you could remediate and fix these problems, these vulnerabilities. So if we scroll down here, you'd see similarly, you'd see the categorization about critical, medium, high. But if you look here now, you see there's some more in-depth information. It shows you synopsis of the particular vulnerability, the description, some external links, as well as the solution, right? And the risk factor as well, right? It shows us much more information as opposed to the previous report, right? And this additional information is perfect for like, security teams, people who actually have to remediate these vulnerabilities. This type of report is perfect for those sort of people, right? So unlike the previous report that was more geared towards management, this sort of report now is more geared towards technical folks, right? The security professionals, your patch team, your remediation team. So guys, that brings me to the end of this video. I really hope you found it useful and that you now have a better understanding on how you could use Nessus to perform vulnerability scans. Also, I'm interested in knowing, do you currently perform vulnerability scans in your organization? If so, what tools do you use? Do you use Nessus, Rapid7, Action 1? I'm really interested in knowing. Please let me know in the comment section below. If you found value in this video, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel and hit on the notification bell so you'll be notified once a new video is released. Thanks again for viewing. See you soon.